Okay. Um, yeah, so thanks for joining me, guys. To for my assignment, it's basically my autoethnography was about video games and how important they were to me. I, along the way, ended up kind of basically processing some childhood trauma that I didn't really need to know that I needed to process before. Um, so really, this conversation is just how important video games are to you, if it's gotten you through any hard times, if it provides you respite now or in the past, and kind of talk about the communities that it's helped you build, also in your formative years and today. We're using different modalities here. I'm using Discord to chat with you guys while we play a video game, while we stream this on Twitch, which Silent Norseman, my friend Elling here, has graciously agreed to broadcast this and also help me get this submitted by editing it.
Would you say graciously, or would you say?
I would think it was pretty gracious.
Was there no follow-up? Like, it's gracious or
banana? I was gonna say, like, or just, like, force into it, like, just servitude.
Coerce.
Gracious. I offered.
Coerce, yeah.
He did offer.
Okay, good.
But this is for the audience. My name is Trey. I am the person doing the assignment, and these are my friends, Chris, Elling, Terrell, and Kit. They have also agreed to be a part of this conversation. We'll try to avoid our usual loose sailor lips, but it's obviously a part of the discourse. So
Shoot. I got a flag filter on. Okay.
Oh,
hey,
shoot.
but you already started by saying shoot. That is progress.
Yeah, I do have a filter.
Look at the personal growth.
I just tend not to use it.
Honestly, don't be afraid to do so. Just, we could still have it R-rated, just not over the top.
I'm at Legion that, by the way, if you guys want to.
I feel like all former Mormons have that built-in filter.
Absolutely, you do.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All former Mormons have that.
100%.
Yeah, you have that. It's such a weird thing too, because like it is almost like a click. Like you're like, okay, no cussing mode. I just like I said, I literally choose not to use it.
Oh yeah. Well,
if you guys can tell, you guys can teleport me, by the way.
Bozan has yet to return from delivering our tithing demands to Menistad.
All right.
Trey, get through your intro.
You could sweep the roads and see what's
I mean, the intro's pretty much done. I guess as far as for your intros, I want you guys to introduce yourselves and talk about how, kind of who you are and how long you've been playing video games.
Okay, I'll go first. My name's Elling. I also stream on Twitch and have a YouTube channel under Silent Norseman. Been gaming since I was 5 on the Super Nintendo and real old school PC stuff. Was a pretty heavily a console gamer through my childhood. Dabbled with PC games, especially old Sierra point and click adventure type stuff. And then didn't really get back into PC gaming until I built my own PC in 2018. At which point I pretty much switched completely to PC gaming, and yeah, it's been a lifelong hobby and passion. I mean, so much so that I started streaming, and all of that came naturally. It all stemmed from me wanting to easily access clips of funny or entertaining things that happen while I'm playing with all of our friends. Then Twitch just automatically saves your videos after you stream. So I was like, that's a natural extension. So yeah. So that's my quick backstory.
Hell yeah. And whoever wants to go next.
How can anyone follow that?
It's not about clout.
Well, you're gonna have to.
Oh, I spoke up. My name is Kit, and
He's in it now.
Yeah,
I know. I'm like, fuck. I should have said.
I
My
volunteer
name is
as
Kit.
tribute.
I am 38 years old. My social security, no. I have been gaming probably around the same age. My first console was the Atari. Moved on to Nintendo,
God
Super Nintendo.
damn. Really?
Yeah, I
Damn,
know.
son.
Sorry,
I know.
sorry. Interrupt. That's just impressive.
I've definitely experienced a variety of games. I have been following in most every single console, most forms. Like I used to play MUDs too, which if you're not familiar with that, it's multi-user dungeon. It's like text-based Telnet type games together, and I have enjoyed everything about it, and I feel like it's made my life a lot better than what it could have been.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, bro.
I'll go next. I'm Chris, 36 years old. I'm a Taurus.
Looking for a woman who can
play games with me on the weekend and
grab a bull by the horns.
and let me be super sweet to her. I started playing on computer and Nintendo, and I was primarily a console gamer for a lot of years. But I had a couple PCs where I try and make it work. Like we played the original Call of Duty, Myst, stuff like that. Original Nintendo, and Sega, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Okay.
Missed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Was there a
Terrell,
different point too I was supposed to add on?
No.
Sorry.
you can do whatever you want.
It's your
man.
intro.
It's your intro.
Yeah, that me.
At me. Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude. That's what I'm here for.
My name is Terrell. I'm 35 years old. I have been a PC gamer probably about around the same time. When I was like 5, I got very into building PCs. I was very curious about doing all of that. So started with like SimCity and the old school GTAs and Duke Nukem and all that type of stuff. So I've always been like primary a PC gamer. Over the years I got more into console, but it's always been PC for the most part. And yeah, that's all I really got.
So I kind of want to like piggyback off of that because I was definitely a console gamer, almost exclusively. Times I got with PCs was I had to go to like those PC cafes back in the day. They were few and far between, but if you could find them, that's where you went.
Right.
So my exposure was always to that. It's interesting that Kit even has as far back as the Atari. I only knew about the Atari because someone in the neighborhood had one. And I learned about MUDs in my video game storytelling class 2 semesters ago, and even tried Colossal Cave Adventure on an emulator. Boy, that game is brutal. It's so it's disorienting because it's only so many commands that it responds to. So it was really interesting to like go back in time like that.
Is it called Colossal Cage Adventure? Is that what I heard?
Cave.
Oh, okay. All right, never mind.
Or just it was mostly known as Atari Adventure, from what I remember.
Oh, it was. Well, I thought it was called. Wasn't there that one that was just called Adventure?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's the full name. Adventure was the like first dungeon crawler for sure, but it was visual. The one I was talking about was like an old DOS system.
It was like the text-based one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude.
So it's like the game that just inspired all of these modern RPGs.
Yeah.
Which, and was it with that sense of discovery in these like gaming, like who was the person that was instrumental in introducing you to games, even PCs, I guess?
My mom.
Oh, yeah. Mom.
Yeah, my mom was a computer programmer for for a lot of years, and so we never had like the best computer. But I mean, I grew up with them. We made them work. You know, I mean, she mainly used it for work. So like the games I was playing, it wasn't like anything crazy, right? It's whatever can run on this fucking Dell PC, which is why a lot of the games I was playing, you know, when I was a kid. I mean, this is before like graphics card and shit, right? So when I was a kid, it was more like what would you call it? Like DOS-based games, like Earth Siege. I still remember even how to run the fucking command codes for it. But still, I mean, it's or like Mario teaches typing. That was a really good.
Mario teaches typing. I'm not familiar with this. Please elaborate.
It is a Mario game that is based on typing. That's really what it is, and so it teaches you to type. It's pretty. It's
like the typing trainers.
Maybe I would actually know how to type if I had that as a kid.
I mean, that's why I can type pretty well. Like
was
my mom.
This,
and my
was
mom,
this on
like,
Nintendo system?
No, this is on PC.
Oh wow!
You typing with on a Nintendo?
Yeah, I mean that wouldn't really help.
A B A B X Y.
I don't think they had a Nintendo keyboard, but I mean, you know, whatever works. But yeah, it's. My mom was just very big on you know, PCs and just understanding how, you know, computers essentially just kind of like the forefront. They were getting rid of a lot of, and not to do more of a tangent, right? But they were getting rid of like a lot of computers out of work, and so she went and donated all to our fourth grade teacher. So our fourth grade teacher, who we normally just had desks, ended up having like 20 computers in his classroom. To, you know, that way to like help the students kind of learn and understand how it works. And most of the time we were playing like Oregon Trail or something, right? But yeah, it just very, very interesting. Be growing up in a household like that and just understanding kind of at least the basics, right?
Yeah. Did anybody else have, like, I guess the household like that invited video games?
Yeah, my parents definitely, with having 10 kids, they wanted a very cost-effective gift that was split amongst the children rather than giving everyone individual gifts, and it also helped keep us out of trouble.
So they were the like give the baby the iPad before that existed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
We were playing in the ditches all the time, and we just used video games as a way for us to channel that energy somewhere else.
We found too many bodies in the ditch the family needed to.
Too many neighbors complained, honestly.
Why is there a small army living in the ditch?
So how did that's so fascinating. Terrell, how did you get into PCs then?
I mean, honestly, when it comes to like video games, I got into PCs first, and then PCs kind of got me into video games, if that makes sense. Like, I was just such a nerd when I was a little kid. I was so curious and started taking apart computers, and like it was always such a puzzle to me and all that stuff. So I was just like, I've always like been into PCs since a super young age, and then I feel like just gaming kind of came with it. Obviously, like you go to school, like Chris said, play like Oregon Trail, or they had like this game Turok or something with these dinosaurs that we used to play at school all the time. Or whatever. Turok or something. Yeah.
What? Turok was brutal.
Well, it must not have been that then. It was a dinosaur game with like you would collect all these eggs. It was like it was in my elementary school.
Oh yeah,
making you play Turok in elementary school.
Is pretty
Jesus, dude. That was N64 at its finest.
So like when I was just younger, it's just all about just the better PC that I could build up, the more like better games I could play. Like I've always been kind of more of a casual player because it was more I was just into PCs more than actual gaming itself. I think it just kind of came with the territory.
That's
awesome.
That's fair. We kind of had a tech house, but it wasn't like heavily video games. My dad worked for like Seagate back in the day, and so like he was very much into the tech space before most people were. So we had a household computer, you know, even in like the late 80s, early 90s. But it wasn't really like for gaming or anything. It was just kind of something we hijacked it for. And it, because it wasn't for gaming, it was very much limited in its capacity and what it could handle. So that's where a lot of the Sierra point and click text adventure type stuff came from, because it's very low impact. And it wasn't like, we dabbled with that, but it wasn't as captivating as a kid. So it wasn't really until my brother bought a Super Nintendo that I really started to get into gaming. And then even still, like, we would dabble with it, but it wasn't like something I was heavily using. I was still probably outside as frequently or more frequently than I was on the computer or on the Nintendo. So for me, it was really PlayStation 1. He traded in the Super Nintendo for a PS1, and that's when everything started to fall in place. And I was like, okay, all right, this is I'm all about this.
Yeah. And ironically, I guess unironically, that's when I got into video games, because my dad, he was kind of like your dad, where he had the tech, but it was also like, it was your DVD players, your sound systems, and a Macintosh. He's always only ever had a Macintosh. He just refused to have a PC, mostly because he is a graphic designer, and for the graphic design people, that's, you know, that's the platform you use. The video games that I did get to play on that was like just random, like randomly he got Full Throttle once, and that was like my introduction to point and click. And like Full Throttle is still like, that game still holds up. I don't care what anybody says. That game is so phenomenal.
They remastered it a couple years ago too.
Yeah, a few years ago, yeah. And yeah, that was my introduction. And then when I got my PlayStation, the whole reason I wanted it was because we would go to like Media Play, Circuit City, or even the mall, and I'd go to like find a gaming store, and I just hang out and play Jet Moto, and I was like, I have to have this game. So then I got my PlayStation and the Jet Moto, and you know, growing up, and my mom hated the idea of video games. My dad didn't really care. He knew that when I was over on weekends, that was my, you know, thing. We would go do fun things, but video games was my thing. My mom hated it for it forever, and that just she continued to hate it because I just got more and more video games.
Well, I was gonna say that's such an interesting too, because I feel like a lot of people, especially back in the day, it's definitely become more, or it has become mainstream now in the right. But there was a point where it was just viewed as almost like a disgusting habit, or just like something that's gonna rot your brain, or which is interesting considering that it's proved a little bit the opposite when it comes to certain things, right?
Very
But
much so.
like hand-eye coordination and things like that. But it's yeah, I mean, like, just watching the dynamic shift between when we were kids and how things are now, and it's just become acceptable. Like, I mean, people used to even, I feel like there was a point in my life where people would make fun of me for playing video games, like even through high school.
Cool kids.
Which is right, which is interesting because now everyone does. So like even in like junior high and high school, people would make fun of you for playing video games. Like, you're not playing football, you're not outside doing this thing. Like, what the heck? It's like, nah, dude.
Why aren't you skateboarding?
Well, now that exact person is playing Call of Duty and Fortnite.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Or even the equivalent to what it would have been back in the day, right?
Sure.
So it's really is just kind of a it's kind of a trip how that.
You and I can cure them.
Anyway, I digress.
I have some equipment we'll need.
No, that's great. And I kind of want to backtrack just a little bit. What was the game for you guys? I mean, I think you mentioned what yours was, Zelling, but what is the game that like really got you into video games?
Mech
for it.
Warrior, definitely.
Mech Warrior.
Mech Warrior,
Yeah.
good.
That was my
See,
first
and that's a
PC
complicated game.
Yeah, it
Yeah. And that's why I was so excited about it, is feeling like I could tame that complex
Pages of binding.
system that was so unfamiliar to me, and feeling like I could actually learn things.
When you bested that
It was
you
very helpful in
exposed
my
the
formative
heart of its
years.
corruption. My cages
Sure.
can
Okay.
capture
Because it was
stop
just
it,
very
prevent
task
others.
like oriented. You had
This is a
to be
treatment,
doing something all the
not
time.
a cure.
Yeah.
Not just
And just
I must
exposing
ride
you to
all
new
the
ideas
monsters
and new
and continue my
concepts
research.
too, like
Meet me there.
the
we'll set things right.
infrared stuff, or I don't know, just so many different things. Thinking about tonnage, everything about that game is something I hadn't experienced until that point. So
Very outside the box. That's why you're such a
Yeah.
DIYer now.
Yeah, no, really.
It's a lot to go with that. Wow. What? And how old were you?
Oh shoot, I couldn't even tell. I think I was around 13 at that time for the
Much
first
of it, yes.
computer game.
But luckily,
Oh wow.
not all. Find
Yeah,
me at Orbay,
it's probably
and I
then.
promise.
So a little
we can
bit later
slow
then.
Their spread.
Huh.
Yeah.
Perhaps
For
by
that
time
one,
to
like
find
we
a
had
cure.
done so many consoles just because my parents would give the entire family one console, and we'd all have fun with it. But that was the first one where my dad was like, "I'm done with this computer. Go ahead.
You
and
can
use it for
have
whatever."
Take it.
That's great. What about you, Terrell?
I'm actually trying to Google it right now because I can't remember.
You
There was
forgot?
this- well, no, there was this RPG game on PC that literally all it was is like, if I remember right, it was almost turn-based, but you're like going up a mountain and you just got like all these different items that would help you. And if I can find it, I'll tell you what it was. But that like really got me hooked, and I think that's why I love RPG so much today. But the one that really like made me like even get into consoles and everything has to be Zelda. Like that's when everything changed for me, when I played Zelda on 64, and I didn't even have a 64. I played it on my friends, but that's when I was, because like I said, I was always such a casual player. Before then, everything like games were always like a benchmark for me. They were like, you know, I'd hop on for a little bit, but I was really just testing out my PC. I just like to see how good.
Oh,
it was
sure.
and all that stuff, yeah. So, but yeah, if I can find that game, I'll tell you what it is.
Benchmarking before it was more commonplace.
Yeah. Not what it is today, but it was just like always like, oh, if your PC could run this, like, you know, you got a decent PC. That's how I always looked at it before they had like official tests and stuff.
Yeah, it's funny how that's only evolved. Like it's just never gone away.
Yeah.
I can imagine little Terrell just dumping a bucket of liquid nitrogen.
Yeah.
He's just dumping liquid nitrogen into his PC tower.
That was like way before all of
Don't
that.
know what's wrong.
I used to love those days, man. Like when there's like the 486 processors and all that stuff. Like to me, it really was just like a puzzle game. I used to just take a bunch of PCs that my neighbor would give to me and just try to create new PCs, and like I don't know, I would tear everything apart. So like I said, in the early years, it was all about PC more than gaming itself. Yeah. But yeah, Zelda, I think is what really got me hooked. I was obsessed with that game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was Ocarina of Time, right?
Yeah, not the like original Zelda.
For me, it was as far as Zelda goes on the Super Nintendo, was A Link to the Past, and like I was too smooth-brained and young for me to really fully understand what was going on in that game. But like when I hear the title menu music, to this day, it still like brings me back instantly and gives me goosebumps, because
absolutely
that song is so iconic to my childhood. But I don't know if I mentioned this conversation, because we've had a similar conversation prior to this, but where it really clicked for me, the game was when we got PS1 finally. The first game my brother got was Metal Gear Solid.
There you go.
That is when I was like, oh, so gaming can be more than just like what we had experienced in like the retro style, top down or whatever. And I mean, even that game kind of was still a little bit in that isometric view,
definitely isometric. Yeah,
but like it took storytelling and gameplay elements to a level that I had never seen before.
Absolutely.
I was way too young to fully understand that game. It would, but it got it so into me that like I kept trying it over the years until finally, like as I got older, maybe 4 years down the road, I finally was able to beat it, and I was like, oh my god, I finally did it. Like I understand this game enough to conquer it.
Yeah, that's same for me. I mean, Jet Moto obviously piqued my interest enough for me to choose a PlayStation 1 over the Nintendo 64 back in 1996. But yeah, that when I saw that game and I finally played it, it changed everything for me as well.
Yeah.
And like I know that it's always kind of the cliche example for when someone falls in love with Metal Gear Solid. But the moment when Psycho Mantis is talking to you and then he like reads your save files on your memory card.
Yeah.
I was just like, what is happening right now? Is this guy like it totally like broke even like I don't know, maybe a fifth or sixth wall at that point, like because it wasn't just it was directed at me, but the dude literally read my save file and talked about certain games on there.
Yeah, any Konami games, like fellow published games by that studio, and it's like, what is happening right now?
Right. And that's when I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Did there, as far as like after you got hooked, did you guys ever get into like following, like subscribing to magazines or frequenting websites?
I owned, so interesting enough, I have it somewhere. I owned the first issue of Nintendo Power. I don't know where the fuck it's at, but
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, it's somewhere. I think my mom has it somewhere. But
oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, I subscribed to Nintendo because, like I said, with the NES being my first one, like the games like Super Mario's 3, and then I subscribed when I ended up getting a PS2. After I had my PS1, because that's when, like, I was really into games for a lot of years, but like, I mean, PlayStation just changed the game, right? Like, I think that's something we can all agree on. Like, PlayStation really that, and I'm sure, you know, games on the PC, but PlayStation really threw a lot of shit at a lot of people. And
Absolutely.
So then subscribed to that one, and then Game Facts, I'd use that a lot.
Game Facts, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to backtrack too much, but I thought it was interesting that you pointed out that PlayStation changed the game, and it's all because Nintendo didn't want to play ball.
Right.
Sony offered to modify and put a disc in the Nintendo system, and Nintendo said, "Nuh-uh." And Sony was like, "All right, we're gonna do our own thing," and here we are.
We've already R&D'd this so much. Let's just put it into our own console.
Yeah. What about it? Because for me, I did like I had a short stint with PlayStation Magazine because they had pretty much every issue had a demo disc, so that just fed my. That just fed me and steered me towards other games. That with Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, those things were instrumental to helping me find stuff. But the unofficial PSM, that was like I subscribed to that. I'm pretty sure until they went under. I can't even remember if they got bought by Ziff Davis, but they went out about the same time Electronic Gaming Monthly went out.
Yeah. EGM was my go-to.
EGM was, I think I eventually switched over to that. In fact, I think it was EGM. They would also send out demo discs, but it was for PC sometimes. But I ended up they ended up sending out the full copy of the original Deus Ex.
Oh,
at
wow.
one point, like a couple years afterwards. And that was a fucking treat when you started playing that game. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was
a fucking treat.
That was unbridled creativity. Like you could
Absolutely.
do everything in that game.
Immersive sim, dude. It's an immersive. It's a genre that's fell by the wayside, and it's such an incredible fucking gameplay experience. But anyway,
Absolutely.
Yeah, the demo discs were always a big deal. It's like,
yeah.
Sometimes like my go-tos were EGM and then Game Informer when I started getting into like my GameStop heavy use of GameStop days. But a lot of times it was like, oh, this has a disc in it. All right, I'll get this magazine.
Yeah. What's this?
What's this? But then also Blockbuster, because like you could walk in there and I don't know, there was something special about being able to see, I don't know, the artwork on the game case or whatever that drew you to something and see all your options.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that is something that has always been something I miss about video games today. Is I can't physically go look at that game, hold it, look at the back, look at the box art,
read the manual.
Read exactly the manual, man.
Manual,
like
steal the manual from the game.
I even mentioned that in my I scanned the Metal Gear Solid 2 comic that's in the manual that introduces you to the mechanics and the story of the game, and it's just like a short, like 9 to 12 page comic, and it just tells me everything I need to know about the game. I would study it. I'd go back to his home when I finished my homework, and I would just play it. Like I already knew what I needed to do, but seeing it in practice was just so cool.
Right.
Now obviously, they do that for shelf-saving reasons and everything's gone digital. But is that something that anybody else misses, or is that just me?
I mean, there's definitely like a nostalgia to that, right? And there's also I feel like in the same boat with that, there's also like, I don't know, because when games, when you have like a preview of something, it's now like it was like Christmas. How about that? It was like Christmas, because now all the information and everything you have is so easily and readily available. You just got to pull it up and look, right? But I mean, like when you flipping through the page and you have to read every article, and then something catches your eye like that, and then you're getting so fucking hyped for it, and also with the knowledge that when the game comes out, it will, be complete. Is really nice. Is really, really fucking nice. That is like I said, like the best way I know how to describe it. It was like Christmas.
Yeah,
is what it felt like.
All I could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Almost been too inundated with information that it's hard to get truly excited. Not like, at least not like we were back in the day, when there were so few options.
It's so concentrated, or not concentrated. You're right. It's an inundation of just so many games. I can't keep up with it anymore. Yeah.
Saturation, and because games have become more mainstream, there's a lot more games being produced. There's a lot easier tools for developers to produce games, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, we're getting just a plethora, and also a shit ton of overhype for a lot of these games, which I think has taken away a lot of that
allure.
That yeah, because now when I see a game get super hyped, my initial reaction is, okay, so how fucked up is that game really gonna be?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Brace yourself.
What are they not telling us?
Right. Exactly. And which is sad. It is so fucking sad. And yeah, so I really miss those days sometimes where it's like, you turn the page, you read this fucking article, you see all the shit they're trying to incorporate with it, or a game that just came out and they threw a review on, and yeah, dude, it was just a lot of innovation was happening during those times. A lot of I don't know, it was just cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm really, really glad you guys brought that up. Thank you for that. Was there, and you obviously don't have to share if you don't want to, was video games a respite for you? Was it something that helped you deal with just even life stresses? Was it, familial, what have you, if you're comfortable sharing?
I mean, it is.
Not while I'm in
Well,
town.
okay, this is what I'll say with all of that. One, just to backtrack a little bit, yeah, I definitely miss like the because I was a PC gamer, so I had like PC gamer magazine and all that stuff with the demos and all that stuff. I definitely miss that because they don't even have CD-ROMs for PC anymore.
Yeah.
Like it,
No,
you know
yeah,
what I
you're
mean?
right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like I definitely miss all of that stuff. Two, I feel like nowadays, back then it was like whatever, there wasn't patches or anything like that, so it was always a polished game. Nowadays when they release games, like it's always in a beta state. When they release it, it's always unfinished because they can just patch it later, whereas back then they had to like finish it and release it in a
I
solid state and all that stuff. So
I would say it wasn't always polished, but they did what they could.
Right. I
Right.
mean,
Like
there
well,
have been
better than
periods.
had to
today.
be as yeah, it
For
had to
sure.
be as ready as they could.
There have
Right,
been
they
dips.
They didn't have to hit these deadlines because of shareholders wanting a game released by a certain date.
Mhm.
Right, right. So, excuse me, as far as like I'm gonna do a lot of tying in just to PCs alone, and but also gaming, all of that stuff. You guys already know, well, I don't know who all knows, but Trey definitely knows. Like when I was 7, I ended up going with my grandparents. I didn't have my mom or dad, so that definitely was an escape route, whether it is building PCs or it was playing games and all of that stuff. Like definitely that was something that could keep me occupied and keep my mind off of, you know what I mean, day-to-day
Yeah.
life and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
100%.
Sure. For me, it was like I had an okay like support system in some ways. Like I grew up next door to all of my cousins on my mom's side. My family's from Norway, so my dad's side all lives in Norway. But my mom's side, like almost all of my cousins on that side lived in the couple houses next to us. So like I had them, and that's why to this day they are still closer to me than extended family is. So I had that, but my dad wasn't really a great dude. He wasn't really around, even though he was physically around. He was, like there was a lot of like emotional neglect and him not really being present. And when he was present, it was usually not pleasant. So video games also were a respite from that. Were kind of like a fantasy land where I could escape to and kind of developed some coping mechanisms in that way to get me through. So I had, my mom definitely tried to make up for a lot of stuff on his behalf. And then I had my cousins who were basically best friends, neighborhood friends. And then I had video games when I, really needed to escape my, couldn't really handle like what was happening as a kid. So I was able to escape into that way. And I mean, what one could argue that like you want to develop healthy coping mechanisms, and that's something that obviously came later as I got older. But as a kid, that was a great boon to have.
Absolutely. Mine was quite similar because I grew up in the two homes. My mom had me full time. My dad had me and my sister on every other weekend. And once I got games, my mom, not too long after I got my PlayStation, started dating and quickly then married her second husband, who was just arguably a piece of shit. Like I still think he's a piece of shit. My mom, I guess for her way of coping, I can't speak for her, has forgiven him, which I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad, but that was video games was how I escaped being shut out. Um, they would cook us like a quick dinner, and then that was it. They would go lock themselves in their room. I was left to deal my thing. Same with my sister. She had to entertain herself. She tried playing games with me, but it obviously wasn't her thing. But absolutely was something that was respite then, and it's respite now. It's how I decompress from either a rough day or to just reward myself for completing another week of mass amounts of homework. Um, I'm just so happy that it's been that constant.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I was picked on a lot as a kid, so like it was an easy escape, right? Like if you don't have the friends to go play with, or if your friends are kind of fucking assholes, which a lot of people were,
I cannot do that
during your younger years, it's easy to just be like, well, fuck it, like I don't need to, I just go play my fucking video games. I mean, it's still, I mean, even to this day, it's still like, oh, like you're saying, shit, I had a hard fucking day. I'm gonna go get lost in this adventure for a bit, and it works out well. So,
yeah, I would argue that
say it's a distraction and unhealthy coping skill. I like to say
can be. Yeah, I mean, can be everything in moderation, right?
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would definitely argue that it is not necessarily unhealthy. I think it's healthy in my opinion, at least, because it's a safe space that you can control. And I don't know about everyone else, but like you could sit back and process whatever thing was on your mind, because you were still thinking about it, even if you were playing game. But you were in an environment that you could control everything about, and so it felt like a comforting way to know that everything's going to be okay. Yeah, unless it's dark.
then that controls you.
Yeah, depending on what you play. Yeah, you could process things instead of just like in your sad, dark bedroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hyper-focusing on it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if you're just alone with your thoughts, you're just gonna fixate on it more, and it may even become a bigger problem. And being able to take yourself away from that situation and think about it secondarily, or even just to like vent to your friends, it goes such a long way. Which I think plays into just the kind of the community aspect of all of this. Is community is definitely a big part of clearly how we communicate and hang out with each other, and rely on each other for those moments. Was that something that was always present when you were children, or were you pretty like you only had a select few people that you could play games with?
For me, as I mentioned, my cousins lived next door, and we all had different consoles. So I had, like, starting out, Super Nintendo. Cousins had Sega. And then they got an N64, and they got a PS2. So I never had those consoles. I had an Xbox One. And so, like, we would kind of shuffle from household to household based on, like, what new game, what impressive game had come out. Like, as I got into my later years in high school, it was like a lot of Halo, and I had the Xbox One. So we would it'd either come over to my place, or I'd haul my Xbox One over to their place, and we'd play, like we'd do co-op, couch co-op with like play through the crazy legendary difficulty on the campaign, or rewinding time with the PS1. I remember spending a lot of time watching my cousin fight the weapons in Final Fantasy VII, and just like tons of fond memories of, they were like my best friends. So we spent a lot of time together gaming as the medium, or the glue that kind of brought us all together.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, my grandparents, there's a neighbor right next door. He, speaking of Final Fantasy VII, that was another one. I never played it personally myself, but I watched him play it all the time. So that was a big game for me. Replayed a lot of Tekken as a kid. Me being a PC gamer, there was a kid that I met in school that his dad was into computers, so he had like multiple computers set up for LAN parties, and he had Command and Conquer back in the day, and that like
That was
completely
another one.
changed. Yeah, that
Oh.
changed
my
everything
God,
for me.
yes.
I played Command and Conquer over at his house all the time. As much as I could go over there and we could play over LAN, like I always played that.
Fucking
So,
Red Alert was like,
yeah, Red Alert, Command and Conquer, all of that. The
Bavarian
first Age of
Sun.
Empires.
Can you, for those uninitiated, kind of like extrapolate on what that is?
So it's a real-time strategy. Like it all kind of started with, well, I don't want to say that it was the first one, but back in the day, like Warcraft and all of that stuff. So you basically just building villages and building an army and building bases and all that stuff, and you basically just have to go and take out another base. And but it was so fun back then. That was like the first bigger like multiplayer games before Xbox Live and all of those things. Like that, when you had PC, those were like the games that you would play. That and like, well, I don't even think the first Diablo was multiplayer. Maybe it was. I don't remember. But Warcraft was like a huge thing. Command and Conquer, Red Alert, all of those were huge back in the day for multiplayer. Like that probably changed the game for multiplayer in general. Like, so.
Yeah, definitely the model. Yeah, because
Yeah.
around that time, consoles didn't have online gaming.
Yeah.
No,
they
I
wasn't-
mean, we didn't have anything quick enough to run it. Even with the PS, when the PS2 came out, the PS2 on the back had that
adapter.
modem network adapter that you could use.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's still like in that. Yeah, it's yeah,
Like
and
with-
even trying to do network play on normal games. Like, I mean, they had to be those like old school games because you couldn't push the fucking rendering through 56K modems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
remember.
yeah, definitely. No, my neighbors definitely they played a big part into it, and honestly, I had my grandma's friend. She lived in Seattle. She played a huge part into me getting into gaming too, because she had got me a PC when I was younger, and she thought like the historical. She looked at videos different, where like a lot of parents look at it as like, oh, it's a waste of time and it's rotting your brain. She legit was looking at Age of Empires like it could teach me historical events and all that type of stuff. Like, so she had got me a PC and got me that game, got me a video card and all this stuff, just so I could play Age of Empires. And I was like 6 or 7.
That's
Yeah,
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
the teaching aspect was a big point for me. Like, I would always argue to my parents, like, this is educational. You should get it for me, like for SimCity and stuff like that.
Man, I used to love
So
it.
lear- Learning city planning.
I'm gonna
and
be a civil
management.
engineer someday.
Yeah.
and then there was like I've told this story a couple times to you guys, but like there was a point when I think I was 9, or I was around that age, something like that, and then my grandma went to take me to go pick up Final Fantasy 9 for Christmas, right? And Final Fantasy games, especially at 9, I feel like, I mean, they had a lot of really adult elements in it, but also, I mean, the storytelling in them are beautiful. The stories are so well written. The graphics, I mean, the design, everything about it, right? It's like, it really is almost like a fairy tale when you consider some of these things. And so anyway, we're going through the line, and again, it just shows you kind of people's idea of video games. And the cashier lady, she was an older lady at the time, or I don't know, she's probably not old anymore. Anyway, she looked at my grandma, and then looked at me and was like, "What do you think Jesus would, think of you buying this game?" And my only response was, "I don't really know. I don't think he's played it." And I mean, this is me at like 10, right? And my grandma got pissed off and walked out. But it just shows that going back to that thing, the thought process of how video games work and how they can, write your mind. A lot of people just think they're evil, and
Who asked you?
The
what would
cashier lady at Walmart asked me that when I was like 10.
So the lady that's supposed to be selling stuff is
Yeah,
trying to get you not to buy stuff.
dude, that's a legit story. Yeah, that really happened. It was probably like her second day on the fucking job, and you know, she wanted to produce her religion to the people. I mean, regardless, it doesn't matter. It's, I mean, you do you, lady, but when you're doing a job, shut the fuck up and sell a thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
for shut the frick up. Sorry.
I don't think.
It's too late.
You're way past that.
You can't walk that
Freaking
back.
fuck up.
Yeah, you about.
Oh, that's the
50
first
to
F word you caught?
100 F words in already.
Yeah.
There's so many others.
Have I said more? Or is
Oh,
that the
yeah.
first one I said?
No.
Oh
No.
yeah, you've said plenty more.
Sorry, my head.
He's passionate.
I had the filter, and the filter went out the way. I am passionate, and I'm also like really tired. So
Yeah, it was only happening when you were passionately talking about something. Has Jesus read the IGN review? Because I think he might be persuaded.
I'm just saying, because like what went through my mind was just like, I don't know, dude. I mean, this is before I wasn't religious, right? I mean, this is actually before I was even religious too. But I was just like in my head, I was like, I mean, I don't know, dude. Jesus seemed like a pretty chill dude. He might fucking get down some video games, whatever. Like, who knows? We don't know.
Right.
He's not around right now, so we can't really, you know, at the time it's like, yeah, whatever. We don't really know. So I thought my answer was actually pretty logical when it came to that, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of a ridiculous. I mean, as a kid, I thought it was logical. Yeah, it's such a weird thing, but it's something that always stood out to me about how some people view video games. You know,
It is, yeah. For those, you know, especially when we were kids, man. Like in the '90s, it was. I mean, and it still, to some extent, is just either it's good or it's bad. There's always that, you know, video games are responsible for violence,
everything,
which has been disproven time and time again. But back in the '90s, it was so bad because people only got the information from mainstream areas, and now that gaming has become mainstream, it's the narrative around it has changed so much. I mean, obviously we could talk about how there's the social integration, like what we're using right now with Twitch and the chat feature of Twitch, just how much more connected we all are. You know, I could, like, swatting wasn't a thing back in the '90s, but swatting is a thing that people do to get back at people. You know, there's always been that aspect of it. At the end of the day, it is a social experiment, right? And I think it's really meaningful, obviously, to us, because once you understand or play a video game, whether it's on your phone, or, you know, casually on there, or on a console, playing with your kids if you have them, it is something that once you play them, you start to understand their appeal, and then you start to understand that they do teach you things, not just about like what the mechanics are in a video game, becoming well versed in other genres, but you are understanding yourself and the people that are important to you. I think is probably the most important thing I've taken away from video games.
Well, I mean, shit, dude. Like one of the last, I want to say one of the last things we really did, but probably one of the most like meaningful points I feel like with my father. Like we like when I was a kid, we would play NES games together. Specifically, we'd play Top Gun, which you'd go back and forth shooting each other. You know, before Ace Combat, stuff like that. We had Top Gun on the NES. That was pretty great to play.
Yeah.
And you know, we were able to, you know, connect that way. Can't really connect any other ways, but that really kind of helped. That was pretty good. And so I mean, it can really build relationships with a lot of people, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's an experience. You're not watching a story, you're experiencing the story. You're a part of it. You're part of the story, right? And so, you know, having that just not yourself, which is primarily why a lot of times these days I play primarily multiplayer games now with you guys, is because, you know, that's the type of experience I'm looking for right now. It's a social thing for me, like you were saying. It's I like to be around my friends and play with my friends and talk about the game we're playing at the same time. Yeah,
that's how we continue to bond and keep our like relationships strong. Is like some people go to the bar with their friends on the weekend. We all meet up in a digital lobby and like play games together.
Some people go to the Westerner, some people play games together.
Mind your business.
Sir. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and actually, you know what? There is one more thing I would like to touch on that I don't think we've really gotten into, and it's also about the trauma dump. When I was not the trauma dump, sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that.
You're fucking trauma dumping.
Trauma dumping. No. But I've completely forgotten about this. This PC I owned was put together primarily by you guys because of how much I was drinking. And one thing that will, and I will try not to get emotional when I say this. I've never repeated this. The one thing I will never forget, and I don't, Melanie might roll his eyes at this, but only looking at me being like, listen, dude, like, we're building this because if this can help you not drink, like, you know, of course we'll do it for you. And I mean, that I never communicated this before, but like how, like, I remember that specifically because of how touching it was. Like, you know, I mean, and it took a few months, but you know, it got there. And this is definitely one of the things that helped. It gave me a new avenue to explore, something new to learn. You know, I didn't feel as stagnant at the time. Yeah, so I mean, right there. I mean, that is another, you know, through rehab and stuff like that. Like this was another outlet for me, and it was there because you guys helped me with it. So yeah,
That's
really nice.
Thank you for sharing that, Chris.
Yeah,
it's the truth. Yeah. I got a couple of tears. I'll get rid of it. They're crocodile tears. Don't worry about it. I don't even know what the fuck that means, but I just want to say it.
I thought that meant they're huge.
I mean that in itself. I mean that's the catharsis right there, man. Like, it's the importance of the community that we've built because of video games, and the extensions beyond that is meaningful in so many different ways. And those moments, other people's moments, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it can be so many different things for each person, for each individual, whether it's, you know, the audio visual stimulation, you know, it's got incredible music, incredible visuals, it's got really interesting story, it's got the multiplayer, playing with your friends and bonding that way. Like, it just hits so many different fronts.
Yeah.
Just in its nature with being like an interactable environment.
Right. And again, like, for a lot of people, you know, for a lot of people that aren't into it, that's very fair. And that's not your medium, and that's okay. But for a lot of people who are into it, the normal response you hear is the same one we've been hearing since we were kids. And it's like, I don't think they understand fully. These are the same people that would go and read a book and spend most of them reading a book, or, you know, watching a show or something like that.
Or sports.
People will say, or sports, anything like that, that they say, well, you know, I don't want to waste my time playing video games. I'd rather be doing whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, though, this is just like any type of medium, except for, again, it is interactive, and you can join with other people. Which can be also a good and bad thing, because again, there is the whole toxic side of video games, which is unfortunate. But you know, I feel like that's also why a lot of us don't play a lot of PvP games. But you know,
well, and why we exclusively chat with each other in a private.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Discord.
I don't want to hear any type of you know, random slurs or anything while I'm playing games. I just want to experience the game and play.
Right.
And we have that
I
option.
Don't want to hear Trey's voice, so I would say it's still pretty toxic.
Wow. I was just about to talk about how meaningful it was for Terrell and I's relationship to have video games when he lived in Vallejo, California. But now I am not sure I
take it back.
Feel as strongly about that. I shared it, obviously, but I wish I didn't.
No, but all jokes aside, we definitely did stay together for like 10 plus years just off of video games alone.
Yeah, man. Those miles did not separate us. Like we were always playing NBA 2K. I always felt like I was a part of your life and you mine. That I think was a meaning. I don't want to speak for you, but I knew that when we did play games, those moments felt special.
Yeah. Well, nah, it definitely did, and I mean, well, we've always had a close relationship, anyways. But it was a way for me
Yeah.
to keep a connection with my old life. Period. Like, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
living in whether it's in the Bay or in Vegas, like that's a whole new life. But that was like my connection to my old life, like playing with you or playing with Casey and stuff. It was mainly you over everybody. Casey too, Casey and Nate. But yeah, without video games, we probably would have fell off for a while.
Well, and without video games, you never would have met Chris or Elling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't be living here, which I know you
Yeah,
absolutely regret, but you know.
Yeah, I
But-
feel like that was a mistake.
Mistakes were made.
I mean, he's had nothing but poor luck since he's fucking been out
This
here.
is
So I mean, you know,
true. This is a true story.
we try to
Yeah.
make it as good as we can in this house. We just can't keep up with all the bullshit.
Yeah, it's such a weird thought. Like, where would all our relationships be without this thing we're coming together on?
I mean,
Yeah.
There's your
fair,
there's our through line.
How many
well, I
adult
mean,
friend groups are as large and strong as ours is? Like, it doesn't really happen because
no.
you get distracted with your family life, you know, whether you're married, have kids, whatever. You can't
Right.
leave the house to do things. Video games still gives you the ability to be very social with your friends and still be in the comfort of your own home. So, you know, most adult friend groups just kind of fizzle out. And ours has not simply, well, not just simply, but probably in large part due to the fact that we all game together on a weekly basis.
Look at back in Cedar. Like, we still all sit down and we play stuff like N Plus together, right? And that's how me, you, and Dan bonded. And then, I mean, we moved to an entirely new fucking city, almost together. I guess you guys came up like 6 months after me.
Yeah.
And then, but still, like, I mean, and then Trey, right? And so Trey bonds with Graham. Trey goes over to Graham's house to play games. That's where I meet Trey. And then that's where, you know, and then that's how that, and then we used to have our Sunday night gaming, and that's how we all became even closer friends. And then that's when Terrell started playing with us. And I mean, really, like, you can trace so much stuff, and as a friend group, especially in ours, to, you know, enjoying that time together.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's a very strong through line.
Very strong.
Not just with each other, but I personally, like, it's the same thing with like movies and any other media, sports, but meeting stranger and then talking about this thing that you're into, this Command and Conquer, and having that shared experience and feeling the kinship with that. It's a crazy thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you find your people in various circles, and video games happens to be ours.
Yep. I feel like it's just it is. I feel like, number one, it's still underrated, overrated in some parts now, but I feel like it's still it's still underrated for a lot of people, and especially like a lot of the older generations, stuff like that. But I mean, you know, and that's even changing too. Like, I mean, you see a lot of people, I think, like nowadays, that are older people that are kind of shedding off that skin and trying it. You know, I mean, like I said, my dad at one point played games. He used to play those submarine and naval, which is why I like subs so much. He used to play those submarine simulator games, Silent Hunter, and, you know, Typhoon, I think, was another one. I mean, there are so many different avenues. And again, like, it's not just, also with video games, it's not just one thing. How many different genres do you have in games? I mean, you have pure
There's something
story.
for everyone.
Yeah, you have pure story game. There was a game I played a while ago. It was like a 5-minute game. I think it cost $2 on Steam. Or it was like, maybe, no, I think it was like 10 minutes. And the game is literally you pressing D and push, and the car drives ahead. and then it is literally a narrative story about what's happening with this person as she tries to get home.
Is it the car one where you're driving the car through the
Yeah, where you're
storm?
driving the car through the storm. Exactly. Yeah. That's it. Like that's all it is, and it's narrative, and it's about this this developing story, and it was cool. Like it was really interesting, super simple, but again, like at the end of the day, there's interaction. There's you know there's a story there. So if you don't want to go through and do all the crazy shit, there are still games for you. If you want to, you know, play sports, there's games for you. If you want to, you know, go crazy, there's games for you. Like there's some really insane games.
Yeah, if you don't want to do
feel
PvP,
like you're actually losing your mind. Yeah.
You can just play a story game if you're not good at gaming. You can do just a story type game, whether it's like a Telltale game or, you know, something like the car driving one. I don't remember what it's called, but
I don't either.
Before It's Home or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Kind of spinning off like how many different games and genres and stuff like that. One fear I have is like getting a disability, and one comfort I had is just like seeing all the stories of like what games are modded for, you know, people without sight, people missing limbs and stuff like that, and the knowledge of being able to still experience things outside of your home and try new things even with that disability, it has brought some comfort.
Absolutely.
And the fact that it's good that it's like so widespread now and bad in some ways, but I think overall net positive.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the bad side of it is because of the oversaturation of games. I mean, if you're on Steam, you're looking through a game, right? I mean, a lot of the games that come out on Steam, or not a lot, but there are a lot of games that come out on Steam that are scams, right? I mean, we have those games now, unfortunately. So that's something that we have to deal with now is like legit, just straight scam games. Like there are some games that there's a game I downloaded that I ended up getting rid of, and in the reviews it literally said this game takes up way too much memory for what it is. It pushes like the CPU capacity, whatever, to like its max. And then everyone else talking about like, yeah, basically they're using your console as a Bitcoin miner for you. Like, oh, that's interesting. So interesting that they can do that shit now. So I mean, like you have that type of stuff. Yeah, right. That's something you don't hear about a lot. And then when I was like, that's weird. That's one comment. And then everyone was going through and like, this is like a normal thing that can happen. Like this game should not be pushing my CPU to the max. My graphics card to the max, but it is. So it really is interesting. Like you have to kind of like navigate this weird
it's a new landscape.
It is. Yes, we're in the
as with anything, it's continued to evolve.
Consumer beware.
As with anything.
Which is unfortunate. I really love this conversation, but we're actually about an hour and 11 minutes into this.
Yep.
So I think we should end it there. 2 more days. We'll do part 2 and 3 in about 2 weeks. So stay tuned. But no.
Absolutely not.
No, thank you so much, you guys, for getting together for this conversation, having this conversation, and doing it with all different kinds of multimodalities. I hope that my professors Christy and Darren Jensen will be okay with the language that occurred, but your faults, and I've heard them use those words before, so I think we're okay.
They're not unaccustomed.
Yes, not unaccustomed. Yeah.
I don't even remember. That's how bad it is.
His name rhymed with wrist.
Yeah. When that person also forgets and curses in front of their mother, maybe their filter isn't as good as it used to be. Or their grandmother. Luckily, my grandma doesn't give a shit either. So, but
yeah. Well, thank you again, and we will wrap this up now. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Next time we can talk about my views on language and how it doesn't matter.
Oh yes, for a different discussion.
For a different discussion. All right. See ya.
Part 2.
Okay.